Szanowni Państwo, kontynuujemy temat przepływów transportowych po wojnie na Ukrainie. Ten panel odbywa się pod auspicjami Ośrodka Studiów Wschodnich, czyli partnera merytorycznego Krynica Forum. Zapraszam, zaczniemy trochę w mniejszym składzie. Ostatni panelista jest w drodze, więc pewnie do nas dołączy. Już oddaję głos prowadzącemu.
Okay, thank you very much. Just housekeeping note, we'll conduct this panel in English. Welcome to all the guests and people watching us online. I'm happy to introduce to our distinguished guest here, Mrs. Irina Kosse, that came to visit us from Kiev, an economist working on transportation issues, which we'll focus on, and Mr. Bogdan Zawadewicz, member of the Polish Development Bank, Bank Gospodarstwa Krajowego, that is also very much involved in both the present challenges, as I assume, linked to the impact of the Russian invasion on the transportation networks and the future. Basically, there are two basic layers that I would like to tackle here, talking today. There are some emergency short-term challenges that emerged from the war, especially concerning Ukraine's links with the European Union. As it happens, all four of EU member state border countries that border Ukraine are also part of the Three Seas Initiative, and which itself is a major policy vector, so to say, or a platform to coordinate connectivity transport-related issues within the region. So basically, I would like to link both of those perspectives. That is, responding to these emerging challenges coming from the invasion, but also talking about more long-term vision of how Ukraine can be and will be linked with the EU in terms of connectivity in general, but transportation in particular. Also have in mind that for the countries within the EU that border Ukraine, the Three Seas Initiative is an important platform to coordinate their stances. So let me start in and address the first question to Mrs. Kosse. If you could give us an overview of what is going on in terms of various transportation logistical links and chains in Ukraine, given the invasion, given the blockade of the Ukrainian ports, which is still in place for many types of cargo, and what are the biggest challenges that need to be solved now, as opposed to this long-term vision that we'll talk about later, and especially when it comes to helping Ukraine businesses in transportation sector to establish alternative logistical and transportation chains.
Thank you. First of all, let me thank you for inviting me to this forum. About current challenges of Ukrainian transportation system, well, I would like to say that the war, which started in February, it highlighted the challenges of European connectivity with the East, because just a brief overview of what happened. So in March, there was a huge drop in freight transportation to and from Ukraine, because nobody knew what to do. Nobody was prepared for that, obviously. And we also saw a huge influx of outflux of our citizens fleeing the war. So the passenger border crossing points were overflooded, and they were also not prepared. And then in April, the freight picked up because Ukrainian exporters needed to export its products. And with the blockade of Black Sea seaports, all these goods started to go through Ukrainian western border. And what I saw as an economist when I analyzed those flows, I can also say that not just the volumes picked up, but the composition of goods that are going through this border also changed. So this also produced a challenge. We saw that, for example, Ukrainian imports of fuels increased greatly, not to mention military equipment. So these are goods that never were crossing those points, and nobody was prepared for that. And then, of course, Ukrainian exports of grain. The major route of Ukrainian exports in April, May was by railway to Romanian port of Constanța. So this is where the majority of the volume went. And again, nobody was prepared for that, not Ukrainian carriers, not Romanian carriers, and not the port of Constanța itself. For example, Ukrainian railway operator and carrier Ukrzaliznytsia, it loaded so many wagons with grain in April that it still has about 200 wagons waiting on the border with Romania to be transported to the port. And you can imagine in what condition that grain is right now. Of course, the authorities, the transportation authorities and the railway companies, they reacted, and then they started introducing limitations. So right now, Ukrzaliznytsia doesn't confirm as many orders for grain transportation as it did in April. And then the grain deal was signed, so the three ports in Odessa were opened, and in October, we can say that grain exports from Ukraine reached its pre-war volumes. By Zaliznytsia, it's 2/3 of the grain comes through the seaports, and 1/3 continues to go through the western border of Ukraine. So the challenge is that Ukrainian transportation, I would be talking primarily about goods transportation, about freight, is facing is first the inadequate capacity. The sheer volume of goods coming to Ukraine and going out of Ukraine by railroad and by roads increased like 2, 3, 4 times. It also highlighted that the problem with the way how the border crossing points are organized. When the grain started going through the crossing points, which never had experience with processing grain, we saw that there are not many inspectors that should be there, not many customs officers, not as many phytosanitary inspectors as need be, and also there is a lack of equipment. For example, lack of scanners that are used to scan trucks coming to Poland, for example. Another issue that Ukrainian transport companies highlighted is the working hours of these crossing points, because for Ukraine it's an emergency, and everybody understands that you need to give all you have to win the war. So a lot of these crossing points on the Ukrainian side of the border work long hours. And this is not the case on the other side of the border, unfortunately for us, but we understand the issues, that it's not very easy to increase the number of inspectors, it's not very easy to change the working hours, but that's what we are asking our partners to do. And a third issue that was noted was the insurance of the goods, because a lot of European companies are reluctant to cross the border, so they just bring the goods to the border, and they said for Ukrainian partners to pick up the goods and go further to Ukraine. So there is also almost no insurance for the goods on the Ukrainian territory. And that was a request from Ukrainian transportation companies to somehow provide probably some mechanism of freight insurance. I know that Poland took some steps in this direction, but so far Poland is the only country who did that. So it's.
Thank you very much for this complex overview, but hopefully we'll tackle many of those issues throughout the panel now. I would just like to welcome our third panelists that have made it, and we're very thankful for it. Mr. Krzesinski from Port of Gdynia Authority, a place at the very end of the logistics value chains that we've just talked about, but still a port, a company, a set of companies that the port helps to work, that got involved in this whole great process of recalibrating, rebuilding of Ukrainian transportation chains. In the first part, we wanted to focus on this short-term emerging challenges that we saw during the last 7 months. We'll then proceed to the plans for the future and how to better incorporate Ukraine into European transportation links, also with regards to long-term investments on the Polish side. But let me ask a question now on how those 7 months looked like for Gdynia, and how would you assess the challenges that need to be tackled in the long term?
Yes, thank you for the question. For Port of Gdynia, it was a hard time because the structure of the cargo is just now is quite different, like 7 months ago. Just now, of course, we concentrate especially on the coal and on the grain. We were, of course, as a Port of Gdynia, always first on the Baltic in the grain reloading, but just now we have additional challenges connected with the grain, because many of companies in Ukraine were interested in using the Port of Gdynia as a point on the transportation chain and on the logistic chain. And just now, of course, we were not prepared 7 months ago, but today we can say that we have one additional terminal which is quite prepared, or can be prepared, especially for them for the next years, for example, next 3-5 years, if they want to use it in Port of Gdynia, because just now we have, for example, a tender for the special grain terminal in Port of Gdynia, and of course all of the Ukrainian companies interested in taking part in this tender, they can start, for example.
And if I may just, sorry, I have a follow-up question. How the further parts of the value chain affect the stability? Because what we heard that the capacities of border crossings, the access to specialized rolling stock, also within the European and Polish transporting networks was limited. As we know, both Gdańsk and Gdynia are witnessing an expansion, a huge expansion of
Yes.
a railway infrastructure.
Yes.
And
all of the Polish ports, main Polish ports, Gdańsk, Gdynia, Szczecin, Świnoujście, yes, they have some plans.
So the question would be, how do you see the hinterland, so to say, of Port of Gdynia, and especially, as I assume, the railway solutions? How does it work, and in what time perspective do you see this this expansion to finish, but also the problems along the chain to be solved?
Yes, of course we have some problems just now, because today we are the one and only port which has some problems with the railways, because we finished our great project, rebuilding or we can say completely new building. It will be better. Building a new railway station, Gdynia Port, and it will be finished, I think, that in the first half of the next year. So it's a short time project. But if we talk about the good connection with the south of the Poland, south of the Europe, and the east-south border, if we talk about the Ukrainian border, we have to build a completely new bypass if we talk about the railway, and it's line 201. So it's very important not only for Gdynia, it's very important for Gdańsk, because today I know that the main direction of the railway is quite occupied by the passengers. So it is a quite big problem with connection by railway. And if we talk about the hinterland, it's most efficient connections. So we are waiting for the decision, and I think that it will be in the next maybe 6-7 years.
Okay, thank you. That's this one. The last thing you said, the cargo bypass, is also part of the debate.
Yeah, it's a direct connection from Gdynia. It's a bypass of Tri-City and go through to the Emilianovo, very close to the Bydgoszcz.
That's part of the second part of the debate we wanted to have on this, what needs to be done in the long term to kind of provide Poland, but also Ukraine with efficient alternative transportation as solutions. But before we go there, I would like to ask a question to Mr. Zawadewicz on, once again, on the short term, and how is the Polish Development Bank, BGK, involved in solving those issues, bridging those gaps, and helping businesses both in transportation sector and the ones that actually use it, the investors, the producers, coping with the situation? What's your institution's position on that and actions here?
Thank you, Kuba, for this question. I'm very delighted to be here today with you. So concerning your question, I would say that the bank's activities have or are of a twofold character. So first of all, due to the ongoing war in Ukraine, we set up two financial instruments dedicated to our companies, to the companies that are involved in doing business with their counterparts in Ukraine, because we believe that those companies were mostly exposed to the great risk, right? So these two instruments refer to the liquidity, so-called liquidity and crisis financial guarantees. And it's like a short-term instruments, and I believe they have a real important impact on the business strategies and business activities taken by those companies. Simultaneously, we are developing the financial instruments in the form of financial assistance and the access to the loan, to the credits for Ukrainian companies, for those Ukrainian companies that have been moving to Poland, which are reliable partners, which have some sort of banking record, and which need those companies which need financial access to the financial assets, right, in order to keep their business going on. So this is like the first dimension, the first set of instruments that we set up. The second refers more to the projects that we've been involved for many years now, and as Kuba mentioned, these are projects, infrastructure projects, and this includes basically all sort of infrastructure that exists, meaning seaports, rail infrastructure, road infrastructure, and so on. When it comes to this, we can already say that well, when we look at our strategy and the projects that we've been involved, what turned out to be critical under current circumstances were the investments in the modern rolling stocks. We work closely with Polish rolling stocks producers such as PESA. We also provide or help our national railway company, Cargo, to buy new rolling stocks. So as I said, this is crucial for facilitating the transportation of goods and people. Also, we are involved in the projects that help to reduce the so-called bottlenecks on the critical locations on the borders. we also realize that this is, well, it's obvious that it's something that needs to be sorted out as soon as possible. There's also the projects, just, apart from the infrastructure, this, like, hard infrastructure, the projects that are rather of the financial nature that are supposed to help our companies to invest in the intermodality, intermodals, in the in the investments like handling terminals or in general in terminals. There are of course certain risks and certain concerns. Although in our bank we believe that this also a part of this, should be a part of this crucial or critical investments. And this also comes from, like we rely on the discussions that we have with Polish logistics and transportation companies. We try to identify all those risks and just to same time try to reduce them. So there's an interesting example of the project that has been discussed broadly in the last couple of weeks. There's so-called Sarmatian trade route, Sarmacki Szlak Handlowy. There's something that, well, as we see the role of our bank in this project, it's aimed at facilitating this trade route between Poland and Ukraine to, as I said before, reduce all possible risks, invest in the infrastructure in order to facilitate in general, in a broad sense, the trade between Poland and Ukraine. So I would say these are the major activities taken by our bank with regard to the current situation in Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Many important points, especially concerning tackling the risk. That's also my experience while talking with Polish and Ukrainian companies responding to this emergency, is that there's a lot of cargo, there are a lot of flows to kind of facilitate. The business is there, but everybody's of course concerned with the risks, and this constrains investments. So a great role to play for policy banks here to tackle this in very precise instruments that respond to this. Yes.
If we talk about the investment from the port point of view, we have to remember that if we talk about the infrastructure, we always talk about the long-term investments. So, but just now we cannot count the risk. So this is the problem with the financing in this investment. Of course, we try to organize, for example, some dry ports because they are very important for us. We can organize some new project in the infrastructure, but we need a long term. And just now we don't know what will happen, for example, for a month, 2 months, 3 months. We don't know.
That's a thing I hear very often. It's a genuine concern. I've heard it in Gdynia, I heard it in Gdańsk, I heard it in Constanța, and basically all of the stakeholders in this broader transportation ecosystem point at this. What will be the future of those flows? And by that, just talking this issue, I would like to ask another question to Mrs. Kosse, because one of the primary concerns that I hear from the businesses, from port authorities and so on, is that there are many scenarios on the table, but the most often talked about is Ukraine winning and actually unblocking the ports and all of those cargo flows that storm the European answer to that after this war, the structure of the economy and the general trade orientation shift much towards the usual answer. Quantify this and know to what actual conduct will be produced, but we have in mind the process, the pre-accession. If we take account that now, and many companies that never had business with the EU now. Okay, so my question would be, if the port is blocked, economic structure will be very different, more leaning towards itself. This my take on that, but I'm happy to hear your take on it. How do you see the future of security between Ukraine and all those factors that I raised? How do you serve those cargo flows? Having in mind that are in place, but said this is the most important way of actually succeeding and blocking the port.
Your view that will stay part of what I so many levels. Well, first, right now even sea transportation is limited. The grain deal, ports are open. First of all, they are not. Second, dealt with grain volumes, and it all depends on the inspection team. But inspections done daily. And I saw in the media that about 20 ships are line to be Istanbul, and Ukraine 350 ships, so 120. You can see that probably a third of sent with grain Asia to Europe. The future, well, first of all, the internal restructuring of Ukrainian industry, that now the security concern businesses are relocated from eastern region to more safe western regions. Think that the majority of stay there. It will be and through the Ukrainian western. So trade flow with the in the future we'll see there, and also the status as a for EU member have high hope. The trade EU will already a major trade for so I confirm your views. It will be there, and also so invest in infrastructure, terminals, in Ukraine, necessity to invest in new roads to the European, the narrow. We need to the major cities that facilitate the trade.
Thank you very much. Lots of things, but we're running out of time. Then it's about just minutes. Let me move to another. Finish the conversation. I want to once again revolving around those very. We know that Gdynia is a self-expansion in general. That pre the war, the external port, port. There are railways in the pipeline. There are roads in the pipeline. Crucial one of the port. If you could, it's a very brief overview of what Gdynia plans, and maybe the share of it. Is there a component with the Ukraine
Of course, this plan, our investment, universal into Ukraine and of course, always of the market, especially and connection North Europe and Southern Europe. We are one of the 10th so especially serving this. And of course, Ukraine, if I can say that, important for us. It's not the most. I think that it's something like that. Not the main position.
Thank you. This aspect of things directly to our last speaker here in this round, because mentioned at the very beginning the debate on how to integrate Ukraine with Europe. Parallel, a great debate that this region for years on how to increase in Central European countries, also within the initiative. And here the corridors, of course, a major role. Might the impact of this on the debate traces that it's a huge more economic that is, you need diversity, you need trade routes, connections between railway and road networks help us better to crises that are possible. So I would like to ask a question: what's the state of within the three? Your bank is very much in this Kabul part of the initiative, but how is of the dynamic this initiative and the possible link in those two things? Because for me, map sense to kind of two things. If we're talking about effective 3C connectivity, links with Ukraine is a natural extension way, and also a way to better Ukraine with the US. That's all for EU countries that for Ukraine this initiative. I think those two big.
Thank you, Kuba. Maybe I should start with the brief introduction. So-called investment fund set up bank from European was set up, established, became operational. Are we? So it's basically the idea is to support the connectivity, structural between the countries, the member countries. That is, of course, of South. And let's put it this way. We've been already providing. Well, yeah, I should. First role of the finance investments that, at least in which there are involved. Second condition is it must be profitable. It must bring some profit. We target mostly the private investors, private funds that are interested in investing in and the war in belief rate of the whole investment obviously well improving the region Central Europe. Security, there's a security aspect that obvious before, and then it also opportunity for incorporating regional of project in this fund, it must be based, it must be beneficial initiative that, for instance, I would just give you an example. For instance, to get involved, power military, go to absolutely fine the this investment fund, where we are not to finance anything that's on the other side of the border. Nevertheless, I still believe very significant learned. So, you know, due to the current events in Ukraine, the is by Russia that it's somehow being destroyed. I believe there will be investments in the future, you know, and it will be coordinated. And then I believe for everyone. So this is just the free or investment fund. Then we have like the second activities concerns the development. We are running several projects, you know, testing solutions. This includes, you know, providing financial or and to Moldovan structures, Moldovan nations. This turns out to be doable work. Probably the much larger scale in Ukraine. We are running out of time.
It's blinking red. I'd like to thank you very much